All right, I'm Recruit Miller, and this is my cultural and diversity presentation. I'm with.
Father Kevin McDonough, MCDONOUGH, Church of the Incarnation.
All right. The reason why I chose this church is because the Catholic Church predominantly has a lot of the history of the people that they serve, and I figured that this would be a good start for my presentation. So, the first question is, tell me about a little bit of the history of the church, and if you know the history of the Hispanic population in Minneapolis.
Perfect. So the church, the parish here, is about 115 years old, and it started out, this part of Minneapolis was cornfields.
Okay.
A little over a century ago, but it was a growing, actually it had been Richfield until just before, it was a growing area. So the church was built here to accommodate a mostly immigrant English-speaking population, heavily Irish.
Okay.
For 2 generations plus, it was a huge, huge congregation seating about 1,000 people in the church.
Oh, wow.
And with a huge school with 1,200 grade school kids. But by the late 60s and early 70s, a lot of those early families had now matured. They moved out to the suburbs,
Okay.
and the parish began to shrink. Meanwhile, there was an old but very small Mexican American population in Minneapolis.
Okay.
But that started to explode in the early 80s.
Okay.
And so about the year 2000, we had an Hispanic church in South Minneapolis, but it was in a much smaller building than this. And the church membership there was already, not counting Hispanics, was already big. And so the issue became, we need more space for the Latinos.
Okay.
And we have this big, beautiful church with a shrinking native English speaking population. So about 20 years ago, we did a shotgun marriage between the Latino population and the mostly Irish vestigial population.
Okay.
Bottom line, Chris, we now have about 1,000 native English speakers in the parish,
Okay.
and we have 7,000 native Spanish speakers.
Wow.
Who are approximately 75% Mexican,
Okay.
20% Ecuadorian by origin, and the remaining 5% would be from every place else in Spanish-speaking America.
Okay. Okay. Wow. That's a lot.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is really impressive. What do you think the cultural views of law enforcement are with that population?
I'm going to suspend that question because you and I are going to take a walk after we do the other 2 questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you something that will answer all the questions.
Sounds good. Sounds good. What do you think are some key considerations for law enforcement when interacting with that particular population?
We'll join that one in too.
Okay.
And what's your 4th one?
Fourth one is how law enforcement can develop better relationships with that population.
So let's take a walk.
All right.
And we'll have it all wrapped up together.
All right. Sounds good.
Keep recording as we're walking.
Sounds good.
So let me tell you, first of all, you talked about coming from a Catholic population. I pastored an African American parish in St. Paul for 26 years.
Okay.
And included in the members were lots of cops and a couple of chiefs from St. Paul.
Okay.
St. Paul, African American, Latino, and police communities all have we're going to go over to the church and
Okay.
I'll show you, all enjoy a lot of years of very powerfully good relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a famous effort. When I came to Minneapolis, I discovered that was no longer so.
Okay.
Here, that there was a lot of tension. And in fact, we had an incident, unfortunately, about a dozen years ago, in which some 5 Minneapolis squads pulled up, and because one of our parishioners was ripping off the church, some of the nice white neighbors said.
Okay.
Turns out they weren't. They were helping us out with a project. Didn't speak English.
Okay.
Had a screwdriver in hand, and one of the MPD people pulled a weapon on him.
Oh no.
Fortunately, she was
Thank you.
an African American officer, and so we did not have a racial incident.
Okay.
But I called a leadership meeting. Come on over here and then you'll see.
Okay.
I called a leadership meeting and said, what are we going to do? And some of the people said, oh, we should protest, we should that. I said, no, we shouldn't protest. I said to them, what do cops like? Now, this is all in Spanish.
Yeah.
They couldn't come up with anything. So I said, you have to watch more TV.
Okay.
What cops like is donuts. So what we're going to do is we're going to buy a box of donuts, and we're going to have the precinct leadership and whoever he'll want to bring come in and visit with us.
Okay.
We ended up having 3 conversations, which turned into a project I call Bridges in Blue and Brown,
Okay.
where we have ongoing conversation between Latino folks and police folks. I'm going to show you one thing
Okay.
right here. This is a little chapel we've created.
Oh,
we
wow.
call it the Chapel for Minneapolis.
Okay.
And over there are the list of all the police who've been killed in the line of duty
Okay.
in Minneapolis history. On this other side, Chris, all the firefighters who've died in the line of duty. And of
Okay.
course, here's our most recently
Yep.
lost fellow,
Officer Mitchell. Yeah.
Officer Mitchell. Up here is St. Michael the Archangel, who's the patron saint of cops.
Okay.
And over here is St. Florian, who's the patron saint of firefighters.
Okay.
We regularly remind the people here, we have to pray for the safety of the city and the safety of our public servants.
For sure.
We invite in, all of the last 4 chiefs have been here and spoken in my pulpit. The precinct inspectors, the commanders of the precincts are here regularly.
Okay.
We invite cops to event. They in turn invite our people to events.
Okay.
And so we have a history of tension. We are working on breaking it down. It's going very well.
Okay.
And this space testifies to it.
Yes.
And I'll just give you one last thing. There's a particular kind of visa for immigrants called Visa U. It's the letter U.
Okay.
And basically what happens is this. If you've been a witness to a crime, including a victim yourself, but you cooperate with the police to make a complaint and even to help identify an offender, the police can write basically a get out of jail free card,
I see.
a recommendation, and they apply for Visa U, a U visa. My parishioners 10 years ago were applying for about 2 of those a month.
Okay.
Now they're applying for 5 a week,
Okay.
which is 10 times the level. And what that means is that to be able to apply for it, they had to work with your people.
Yep.
And they have.
That's good.
And they've been well treated. Now, we're not out of the woods, but prayer, invitations of public safety leadership into the Brown community, invitation of my leadership people and my members to police events. That's what's happening. Last word, we have a permanent deacon,
Okay.
that's Catholic clergy, and my permanent deacon is a chaplain to the MPD.
Okay.
And by the way, the chief, the current chief's dad, was also a permanent deacon.
Oh wow.
in
That's
Newark.
great.
Isn't that
That's
cool?
yeah, that's really cool.
So we're building a support structure around people who want to do the honorable thing you want
Sure.
to do.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the interview.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.